Greetings and welcome to A Contemplative Reader, where together we will explore the mysterious, the mystical, the spiritual, the otherworldly, and the transcendent in various forms of literature. Today we are going back to the early 1800s for a classic fantasy folklore Christmas story entitled The Night Before Christmas by Nikolai Gogol. Here in the United States, when you think of a story entitled The Night Before Christmas, you probably think of the poem "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." In Eastern Europe, on the other hand, you might be thinking of a story which begins like this. The day of Christmas Eve ended, and the night began cold and clear. The stars under the crescent moon shone brightly upon the Christian world, helping all the good folks welcome the birth of our Savior. The cold grew sharper, yet the night was so quiet that one could hear the snow squeak under a traveler's boots from half a mile away. Caroling hadn't yet begun. Village youths weren't yet crowded outside the windows waiting for treats. The moon alone peeked through, as though inviting the girls to finish up their toilette and run out onto the clean, sparkling snow. Just then, one of the chimneys began to belch clouds of black smoke, and along with them, straddling a broom, flew out a witch. I am reading from the Penguin Classics edition of this story, which you can read in less than 2 hours. Gogol is perhaps more well known for his novel, classic of Russian literature, Dead Souls. But this story was published in a story collection from the early 1800s, and the Penguin Classics edition gives this nice summary which sets up the story. Written in 1831 by the father of Russian literature, this uproarious tale tells of the blacksmith Vakula's battle with the devil, who has stolen the moon and hidden it in his pocket, allowing him to wreak havoc on the village of Dikanka. Both the devil and Vakula are in love with Oksana, the most beautiful girl in Dikanka. Vakula is determined to win her over. The devil, equally determined, unleashes a snowstorm to thwart Vakula's efforts. Zany and mischievous, and drawing inspiration from the folk tales of Gogol's far-flung village in Ukraine, The Night Before Christmas is the basis for many movie and opera adaptations, and is still read aloud to children on Christmas Eve in Ukraine and Russia, which I find quite interesting because there are some adult situations which arise in this story. But anyway, this story is steeped in the culture and history of Eastern Europe. As I mentioned, it takes place in a village in rural Ukraine. But I don't think you have to be steeped in Russian history or culture to enjoy this quite humorous, fantastical Christmas story. Although some knowledge of Russian history and culture will be of a benefit to you as you read this story, because, for example, there's a cameo appearance by a rather famous and important figure in Russian history, which shows up in the middle of this story. There's a great deal of humor in this story, as I indicated. For example, there's an instance where several male suitors of the witch show up at her house one by one, and what happens as a result of this is like a scene out of a sitcom, except Gogol's writing is much more clever and humorous. There is also a lot of references to Orthodox Christianity in this story. Kind of the life of this village revolves around the parish church, for example. The blacksmith Vakula is a painter who paints things for the church. The deacon of the church is a character in the story. But what I like about Gogol's writing is he doesn't write in a manner which exalts these people into these super pious Christian individuals. Instead, they are displayed as quite human, as the deacon himself actually was one of these suitors who lines up at the witch's house there on Christmas Eve. So the moral of this story, which again revolves around this Vakula's attempts to win Oksana over and getting ensnared with the devil as a part of that, I think shows us how ordinary, flawed individuals. Oksana herself has been told that she's been beautiful so many times that her personality has been affected by that. Vakula is also an imperfect individual. But the story shows us how, in the end, ordinary, imperfect humans can resist the powers and the temptations of the devil himself and still come out in the end. So I hope that you do pick up this story, and if you do, let me know what you think. In the meantime, peace be with you.